Linus, thank you for joining me for coffee this morning with our Coffee with the Editor series. You are from Tractionel Enterprise. Tell me a little bit about Tractionel Enterprise as a company.
Tractionel actually was started in 1982. It was mainly a rail electrification company, but over the years the company diversified into your power industry. You'll be surprised that these days we do things like your renewable power projects, we do your wastewater and water power projects, we do your normal transmission lines for ESCOM, your substation works. We do just about everything electrical. So the company has grown over the years. The company has done some of the flagship projects for this country. I mean, for example, Gautrain. That's one of our nice projects that we pride ourselves with.
And your role at Tractionel Enterprise?
I'm a director for business development and the tendering departments. So those two departments work hand in hand to bring business to the company. That's my role. I'm looking after those two departments. Yeah.
Your background in rail?
Okay. Look, when I was still at the Technicon, I had a privilege to get a bursary from Transnet, where everything started back in the year 2001. And after completing my diploma with Technicon Natal, which eventually changed so many times, I then joined Transnet in 2003 as a trainee technician and later appointed as an engineering technician. That's where it all started. So that's when I was introduced to rail, to what is called OHTE, or overhead track equipment. And I was with Transnet for 5 years. In 2008, September, I then left Transnet. I joined a company called R&H Railway Consultants, which is now called R&H Rail. They are the consulting engineers. So with them, I got exposure to your engineering design side of the business and your engineering project management of the business, managing the contractors on site in terms of the design to make sure they comply to the specs and do all the tests. So I was with R&H for 5 years as well. It was a wonderful experience, but then I left the railway industry altogether. I joined a company, Veolia Water, to just go get exposure outside railways and to try and see what's going on out there. I was with Veolia Water for 2.5 years. I was working with Veolia as a senior estimator for electrical control and instrumentation. So you can imagine, it's completely different.
Totally.
So it was exposure to something that I've never done in my life, doing control and instrumentation. So I was more an ECNI engineer for design and build, mainly for the tendering department. In 2016, Tractionel approached me to bring me back into the railway industry. So I joined them as a project manager in 2016. I had a few projects on my portfolio, mainly your Prasa and Transnet projects, as well as the private clients projects, which I ran successfully. In 2016, I also became the Employee of the Year at Tractionel. It was quite a surprise and a blessing I'm forever grateful for. So I've worked well with the teams at Tractionel. Being a project manager, then you can imagine you are exposed to all levels of the business. You're working one day with a general worker on the ground. The next moment you are sitting with the directors around the table discussing the strategy of the business and the projects you are running. The next thing you're sitting with the engineers around the table discussing the changes on the designs and whatever the engineering issues are. Luckily, with all my background, like I said, I started working for Transnet, then worked for the consulting engineering firm. So it all panned out well. So in 2017, in October, I then was appointed as a director for business development and tendering. Again, it was a big shift from being an engineer to being a project manager, now suddenly to becoming a director. So this time then, I was sitting with the EXCO, working with the EXCO. Luckily, back in 2014, I mean even further back, I did my project management with Stellenbosch University. I did my business management with UNISA. I started enrolling on my BTech electrical degree, and then all these things, luckily, thanks to God. tied up
Have come
together.
together.
Yeah, you never know why you're studying other things in the past, but eventually they add up, and then God put you where He wants you to be, and it works out. So I've been working with the Exco team for 1.5 years now, and I think it's been a wonderful experience. I'm learning a lot. You sit in the Exco meetings, you strategize, you must come up with solutions for the business to carry on.
Yes.
So, yeah.
So in 2015, Tractionel was acquired by CIG, so it's now listed on the JSE. And in that process, you got your level 2 BE.
That's correct.
So transformation and empowerment is quite a big drive
Correct.
at Tractionel Enterprise. Do you want to elaborate a bit more on that?
Look, transformation is more synonymous with the word Tractionel. We are working day and night to ensure that the industry understands that Tractionel is working on transformation, is working on empowering not only individual companies and smaller organizations out there. Yes, in 2015, end of 2015, CIG acquired Tractionel. So now Tractionel is not only owned by a specific individual, but it's owned by a group of shareholders. And through that acquisition, we were able to obtain our level 2 triple B certificate, and we are 57% black owned. And moreover, I mean, the company has got more than 300 employees at the moment. The company size and the number of employees differ depending on the projects that we have. Out of the 300 I'm talking about, more than 80% of the individuals are black. So you can see that the company is working towards transformation, is working towards empowerment as well. Yes.
So there's some other projects that you guys have been involved with, namely Vanessa Rail Academy, and then your practical training. So tell me, how does that all work with Tractionel Enterprise?
Traction is affiliated with a company called Vanessa Rail Academy. This institute trains your expertise that will come out and do the actual work out there for railway electrification industry. So Tractionel has worked with this company hand in hand, training your erectors, training your linesmen over the years. We've trained a lot of these individuals, and while they do theoretical training, they also get the stipend, and when they get placed in the projects, eventually they get the salaries, and eventually they grow in the business, in the field. Again, we also in 2016 introduced P1, P2. That's the language the engineers and the technicians will understand out there. That program takes all your technicon students, your electrical students, and we give them exposure into the projects. I had a privilege actually in one of my projects to work with these individuals to help them, and to help them also obtain their reports and get them approved, and eventually get the diplomas. And once they've got their diplomas, then we also pull them back, not only now as the student engineers, but as junior project managers. In this, then we put them together with experienced project managers, where they get groomed and get more experience for them to grow.
Yeah.
So, like I said, we are working very hard to ensure the empowerment of the individuals.
So I see you also have a supervisor development program. What does that entail?
Okay, the it's a new intervention again that we've developed, where we saw that in the industry you've got the individuals with decades of experience, the individuals which have worked with Prasa and Transnet for years.
Yes.
And then you've got youngsters which have come into the industry, and there's a big gap. So in a supervisor development initiative, we want to close the gap. And when we close this gap, at least we'll be able to ensure that the business is sustained for the future. So when they retire, and not only for Tractionel, but for the entire industry, you need to have youngsters developed. So that's the main idea of the supervisor development training. Okay.
What are the challenges that you're currently finding in the sector?
Look, now I just spoke about experiential training. For the experiential training, the students will require 6 months for P1 and another 6 months for P2. So you will see that if you put an individual in a project, you would like to put him in a project or her in a project where they will work at least for a long time, getting exposure. But the business being working mainly with your tender type environment, some of the projects are only a few months. So before someone get full exposure, you get to move them to the next project and try expose them to something else. And before you get a lot of experience in that field, then you move him to again when the projects come to an end. But again, it's not only those two interventions. We also have other various interventions as a company, because in each project or even department, you will find out that there are requirements for the individuals to have certain skills.
Yeah.
I can name a few, maybe your HIRA training, your construction regulations training, your erectors training, you're working on heights. There's a few. And even for procurement, we have a few ladies that we've taken through some courses so that they can learn and then come back with that theory to put it practically in their departments or projects. The nice thing about all this is that when they've already got all this training, it becomes their own training, their own certificates. And if they need to leave the company, they can go anywhere and apply using the same certificates, not like it's something that the company then now owns, but it becomes for the individuals, hence the word empowerment.
Yes, and great for skills development.
It's extremely great. Our government is driving skills development in the country, and we are actually adhering to that. Other than that, we're doing even more than that.
And the future? What does the future hold for you? For the company?
Look, being in the business development and tendering department, obviously it's my job to work on the pipeline. I need to know what's going on. I need to be able to report back to the board, to EXCO, to tell them what's coming in future for the business to plan. I mean, there's a lot of great opportunities to come. Yes, 2018 was hard. It was very difficult for the construction industry. We saw a lot of big names actually suffering because of the climate in the economy. But needless to say, after the elections, we are positive that we'll see the big capital project rolling out. But other than that, I've been outside the country. I've been to your DRCs. I've been actually last year to Germany as well to go see what's going on outside South Africa. So my teams have been to the rest of Africa, to your Namibias, Botswana, Swaziland, outside that up to your Tanzanias, to your Kenyas, to look for opportunities. So we are working hard to make sure that at least in the next 5 years, we are not only based in South Africa, because yes, we've got an office in Joburg, Durban, Cape Town and Northern Cape, but we want to expand into the rest of Africa. So that's what the team is working towards.
Thank you, Linus, for taking the time to join me for coffee this morning. It's truly interesting to see the steps and approaches and initiatives that Tractionel Enterprise has taken towards their transformation and empowerment initiatives. And I look forward to hearing more in the future, especially about your projects in Africa.
Thanks a lot.
Pleasure.
Thanks for having me.